to Burgundy Bets. I'm your host, Ron Burgundy, and right now I'll go over my 2021 running back fantasy top 20 projections. These are from a PPR rated format. Coming at number 20, J.K. Dobbins. A lot of people are a lot higher on J.K. Dobbins this year. I am not, and for the reasons of Gus Edwards is not going anywhere. He will still be in the backfield. And Lamar Jackson will vulture a lot of those touchdowns inside the 5 and inside the 10. A couple pros, Mark Ingram no longer there. He did have 72 attempts and 8 targets last season. If we take 70% of those attempts and give them to Dobbins, and at Dobbins' completion percentage when he's thrown the ball, that'll translate to an additional 50.4 attempts and an additional 5.5 receptions. I have Dobbins projected for 1,072.4 scrimmage yards, 23.5 receptions, 11 touchdowns, and 1 fumble. One quick note, Dobbins did average 6 yards a carry last year in his rookie year. I don't think that's sustainable. I think we're going to see him more around the 5 yards per carry this year. I'll give you Gus Edwards projections while we're on the Ravens. I have Gus Edwards projected for 940 scrimmage yards, 7 touchdowns, 9 receptions, and 1 fumble for 143 points. J.K. Dobbins, 194.74 points. We're looking to play him in weeks 1, week 3, and week 7 from a DFS perspective. Number 19, Najee Harris, rookie year. I have Najee Harris projected for 200 fantasy points, and for DFS, I'm looking to play him in weeks 2 and 9. Pros, Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. Najee's a great talent, and he's got a great defense that'll give the offense more opportunities with the football. Cons, bad offensive line, and they did lose key pieces on the line like David DeCastro and Matt Fielder, and they're in a tough division where they do have to play the Browns, the Ravens, and the Bengals twice a year. Moving on, number 18, James Robinson. Coming into his second year, I have James Robinson projected for 203.55 fantasy points. We're looking for season highs in weeks 1, 11, 14, and 15, where I will be playing him in DFS, DraftKings. Pros, new coach, new quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, Urban Meyer. That should only improve this team, and they have a swimming pool in the stadium. That's a pro. That's pretty cool. Cons, Travis Etienne, their second first-round draft pick. He should be slotted in and active early. The Jaguars had the least amount of rushing attempts at 337 last year, with James Robinson having 240 of those attempts. Now, if we take away 35 of those attempts and give them to ETN, which is a smaller number, Robinson also had 60 targets. If we take away, say, 20% of that and have ETN on third downs, that's 48 targets for Robinson. At his catch rate, that's 39 receptions. So I have him projected for 39 receptions, 1,195 total scrimmage yards, 8 touchdowns, 1.5 fumbles. Number 17, Antonio Gibson, 23 years old. I have Antonio Gibson projected for 229 fantasy points. We're looking to play him DFS in weeks 4, 12, and 13. Pros, same coaching staff, and once again, an elite defense. They're only getting better, very young, giving more opportunities to the offense. Cons, the backfield threats. J.D. McKissick will be there to steal third down opportunities. And Peyton Barber was slotted in on a few goal line attempts last year, so watch out for that. I have Antonio Gibson projected for 1,170 scrimmage yards, 39 receptions, 12.5 touchdowns, 1 fumble, 229 fantasy points. Moving on, number 16, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I have Clyde projected for 233 points. No standout games from DFS that I'll be attacking. Pros, obviously the offense. He did have 4 touchdowns on the ground last year. I only see an uptick on that. The Chiefs passed 61% of the time last year, but Clyde is involved in that in the passing game, so that doesn't worry me too much. I have him projected for 1,230 scrimmage yards, 44 receptions, and 11 total touchdowns. Moving on. Number 15, Chris Carson, 26 years old. I have Chris Carson projected for 233.8 fantasy points. We're looking to play him DFS in weeks 8, 13, and 16. Pros, in 2018, he had over 1,300 scrimmage yards. In 2019, he had nearly 1,500 scrimmage yards. I know he fell off a little bit last year, but I have him projected for 1,358 total scrimmage yards, 36 receptions, 11 touchdowns, and 2 fumbles. Number 14, Cam Akers, second season, Los Angeles Rams. 22 years old. I have Cam projected for 235.15 total fantasy points. I'm looking to play him in week 7, 8, and 12. Pros, Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford. A lot of people don't know how good Matthew Stafford is because they only got to see him play football on Thanksgiving because he was in Detroit. Everybody's going to learn about Stafford this year. This offense is going to be much improved, and I think Cam Akers will benefit from that. We do have Darrell Henderson slotted in number 2 on the depth chart, but we're not worried about that. I have Cam Akers projected at 1,291.5 total scrimmage yards, 36 receptions, 12 touchdowns, and 1 fumble. Number 13, Joshua Jacobs. I have him projected for 241 total fantasy points. No breakout games that I see to attack from DFS. Couple cons, Kenyon Drake is now number 2 on this team on the depth chart. I do see Gruden getting some packages and getting him more time because he is explosive. They do have a tough schedule. That being said, I have Josh Jacobs projected for 1,346 scrimmage yards, 32 receptions, 13 touchdowns, and 1.5 fumbles. Moving on, number 12, Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders, 24 years old. This will be his 3rd year in the league. We do see a lot of running backs in that 3rd year have their best years moving forward. Miles Sanders has never had a 1,000-yard campaign in his previous 2 seasons. I believe that changes, and he does reach that 1K mark this year. Couple cons, Jalen Hurts, vulture those touchdowns inside the 5, inside the 10 using his legs. I have Miles Sanders projected for 1,423.3 total scrimmage yards, 50 receptions, 9.5 touchdowns, and 2 fumbles. 245.3 total fantasy points. Moving on, number 11, Nick Chubb. A couple people have Nick Chubb a lot higher than I do. I don't think 11's bad. I have him projected for 249.45 total fantasy points. I'm looking to play him DFS in weeks 2, 11, and 14. A couple pros, this is one of the best teams on paper. Baker took great strides. The one thing that held me back a couple slots on Nick Chubb is in 2019 he had 18 rushing attempts. Kareem Hunt was suspended until week 8 of that season. Last year when Kareem Hunt did play the full year, we saw those attempts drop from 18 to 15.8. Chubb averages 82 yards a game with a career average of 5.2 yards per carry. So if he plays 16 games, which is what I have projected him out for, I have him for 1,314 rushing yards with a total of 1,474 scrimmage yards, 14 touchdowns, 20 receptions, and 1 fumble. Once again, 249.45 fantasy points for Nick Chubb. Now we're into the top 10. Top 10, number 10, Jonathan Taylor. 259.7 total fantasy points. I'm looking to play him in weeks 6, 9, 10, and 16 for DFS. Couple pros, he has an elite offensive line he's running behind, a great defense for more opportunities, and excellent hands. Jonathan Taylor has caught 92.3% of the passes thrown his way. Couple cons, Marlon Mack is back. Naheem Hines gets in there on 3rd downs. But with that elite catch radius, the 92.3% when it's thrown his way, I'm thinking the coaching staff keeps him in more on 3rd downs. He does have an average draft position of number 7 right now. I do have him at 10. He does have a very tough first month of his schedule. Total projections, 1,487 scrimmage yards, 33 receptions, 13 touchdowns, no fumbles for JT. Moving on, number 9, Joe Mixon. 25 years old, Cincinnati Bengals. I have Joe Mixon projected for 271.95 total fantasy points. I'm looking to play him DFS in weeks 4, 6, 8, and 10. Cons, the Bengals are the only team without an indoor facility in the National Football League. Ownership doesn't care about this team. They don't spend any money on this team. That being said, pros, there are no backfield threats. He's a true 3-down back. Joe Burrow should be ready for week 1. And Joe Mixon does have over 80% completion rate when the ball's thrown his way. I have Joe Mixon projected for 1,569.5 scrimmage yards, 49 receptions, 11 touchdowns, no fumbles. Once again, that'll translate into 271.95 fantasy points. Number 8, Austin Ekeler. Austin Ekeler, 26, Los Angeles Chargers. I have Austin Ekeler projected for 273.87 fantasy points. We're looking to play him DFS in weeks 2, 4, 15, and 17. Pros, Austin Ekeler is in on all passing options. In 2019, he had 9 receptions of over 20-plus yards and 3 receptions of over plus 40 yards. That's crazy. Obviously, last year was a little banged up, but he still did average 6.5 targets a game he played with an 83% completion percentage. I project Austin Ekeler projected for 1,338.76 scrimmage yards, 70 receptions, 12 touchdowns, 1 lost fumble, which gets us to the 273.87 fantasy points. Number 7, Arron Jones. Collins, Aaron Rodgers. Is he coming back? Is he going to be in Green Bay? Obviously, that changes everything if he's not, but we're going to say he is. Obviously, we do have A.J. Dillon, their second-round draft pick 2 years ago. We did see him get more work down the end of the year last year. However, Packers did just give Aaron Jones a massive bag that'll keep him in Green Bay for at least another 2 years. So I'm not too worried about his touches or usage going down because of that. I have him projected for 1,511 scrimmage yards, 15 touchdowns, 50 receptions, and 1 fumble, which gives us Aaron Jones with 289.10 fantasy points. We're looking to play him DFS in weeks 2 and week 16. Number 6. Now, this is the top 6. This is where we're going to get a little bit controversial and interesting, but these are very, very close projections. Dalvin Cook, 25, Minnesota Vikings. I have Dalvin Cook projected for 312.10 fantasy points. I'm looking to play him DFS in weeks 5, 7, 10, and 12. A couple interesting things here. Dalvin Cook has never started more than 14 games in any season. This will be his 5th season in the league. While he is a threat of the backfield, in the last 2 seasons, Dalvin Cook has had 97 receptions. Only one of those has turned into a touchdown. Most of his work is done on the ground. That being said, he is one of 6 of my projected running backs to have over 300 points. And anybody should be happy to have him rostered this year. Moving on, number 5, King Henry. Derrick Henry, 26 years old, Tennessee Titans. I have Derrick Henry projected for 312.85 fantasy points. 0.7 more than Dalvin Cook. We're looking breakout weeks, season highs in 4, 5, 11, and 13. Pros, obviously, they did just add Julio Jones. Defenses are not going to be able to stack 8 in the box like they did against Derrick Henry. If they do that, they're going to have Julio Jones and A.J. Brown one-on-one outside. It's going to be interesting to see how defenses play the Titans this year. Cons, Derrick Henry has lost 5 fumbles in the last 2 seasons. I have Derrick Henry projected for 1,943.5 scrimmage yards, 17.5 touchdowns, 18.5 receptions, and 2.5 fumbles. Once again, 312.85 fantasy points for King Henry. Number 4, Ezekiel Elliott. Now, I know anyone who drafted Zeke last year has a terrible taste in their mouth. I know I was one of those people that did draft him. But after going through the stats, I think we all just need some Listerine. Let's get into this. His rookie year in 2016, Zeke had nearly 2,000 total scrimmage yards. 2017, he had over 1,250 scrimmage yards. 2018, over 2,000 scrimmage yards. 2019, nearly 1,800 scrimmage yards. Last year, over 1,300 scrimmage yards. Now, all that being said, this is his 6th year in the league, and he has had over 1,600 touches. I think we get Zeke back again. 1,748 total scrimmage yards. I have him projected with 58 receptions, 14 touchdowns, and 2 fumbles for fantasy points of 312.8. DFS, I'm playing him in weeks 3, 9, and 11. Number 3, Alvin Kamara. I have Alvin Kamara projected for 316.6 fantasy points. I'm playing him DFS in weeks 1, 8, 12, and 13. I believe those will be his season high weeks. Alvin Kamara has never had more than 1,000 yards rushing in any campaign, but he's also never had less than 80 receptions in any campaign. I have Alvin Kamara projected for 1,536 scrimmage yards with 81.6 receptions, 14 touchdowns, and 1 fumble. Moving on, number 2, Saquon Barkley. I have Saquon Barkley projected for 321 fantasy points. I'm playing him DFS in weeks 3, 9, 11, and 14, as I believe those will be season highs. Barkley, we know, elite talent, coming off that injury, should be ready to go week 1. Pros, Kenny Golladay and John Ross were both added to this offense this offseason. We all know who Kenny Golladay is. For those who don't know who John Ross is, John Ross was a first-round pick of the Bengals in 2017. He ran a 4.2240 at the Combine. To put that in perspective, Tyreek Hill ran a 4.29. So maybe this guy was just lost in Cincinnati. We know the Bengals, they never try to win. This offense could be completely different for New York. Danny Dimes is going to have a lot more opportunities with playmakers around him. If we can get Saquon back week 1 and healthy, ready to roll, I do expect a big year. And Saquon's rookie, this guy's a monster. In his rookie year, he had over 2,000 scrimmage yards, over 120 targets. In 2019, he missed 3 games. He still had over 1,000 on the ground and over 70 targets. Obviously, we know he got hurt last year, but I'm very high on Barkley. Once again, 321 fantasy points. And number 1, of course, run CMC, Christian McCaffery is a slam dunk. Everybody knows this. In 2018, he had nearly 1,100 yards on the ground, 107 receptions, and 13 touchdowns. In 2019, he had 1,400 rushing yards, 116 receptions, and 19 touchdowns. We know he got hurt last year. He's going to be healthy, ready to roll week 1, 100%. It doesn't really matter how you feel about Sam Darnold going forward. Christian McCaffrey put up those numbers with quarterbacks Cam Newton, Kyle Allen, Will Grier, Teddy Bridgewater, and P.J. Walker. It doesn't matter. He's a number 1 running back and number 1 receiver at the same time every time he puts on the jersey. That's your number 1 guy. So quick recap. We'll go 1 down through 20. Number 1, Christian McCaffery. Number 2, Saquon Barkley. Number 3, Alvin Kamara. Number 4, Ezekiel Elliott. Number 5, Derrick Henry. Number 6, Dalvin Cook. Number 7, Arron Jones. Number 8, Austin Ekeler. Number 9, Joe Mixon. Number 10, Jonathan Taylor. Number 11, Nick Chubb. Number 12, Miles Sanders. 13, Josh Jacobs. 14, Cam Akers. 15, Chris Carson. 16, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. 17, Antonio Gibson. 18, James Robinson. 19, Najee Harris. Number 20, J.K. Dobbins. That rounds out my 2021 running back fantasy top 20 projections. If you can, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you like fantasy football or betting lines, anything like that. I will be going all into that. This is a brand new channel. Support would mean a lot. It would help. If I can get 10 subs and like 15 or 20 likes, I'll drop the same exact projections from a wide receivers within about 48 to 72 hours. It does take about 15 hours to get all these projections done, so it is time consuming. That being said, thanks. Like and subscribe. Ron Burgundy, Burgundy Bits.